The rain has been falling for some time now, not with urgency, not with force, but with the patient, steady confidence of a London rain that knows it belongs here, that knows the streets beneath it have listened to this sound for centuries and will listen again for centuries more. Each drop landing softly, yet persistently, against the uneven cobblestones, creating a countless pattern of tiny, overlapping taps that blend together into a single, continuous murmur, like a breath drawn slowly and released just as slowly, over and over again, without pause or demand. The cobblestones themselves glisten beneath the gaslight, each stone darkened by moisture, their rounded surfaces catching the amber glow and bending it gently, so that light stretches and shimmers in the shallow puddles forming between them, the reflections trembling slightly whenever a new raindrop arrives, sending out faint ripples that widen and disappear, only to be replaced by another, and another, until the street seems to move even though nothing truly does. Somewhere nearby, water trickles along the edge of the pavement, guided by old grooves worn into the stone, by decades of similar nights, by countless evenings where rain fell without announcement, where footsteps passed through and then faded away, leaving behind only the quiet companionship of water and stone, a companionship so familiar that it requires no conversation, only presence. The fog lingers low, a pale veil drifting lazily through the narrow street, softening edges and muffling distance, wrapping buildings in a gentle blur so that windows glow faintly rather than sharply, and the gas lamps stand like patient sentinels, their flames steady, untroubled, casting warm halos that dissolve into the mist before reaching too far, as though the night itself has agreed not to stretch beyond what is comfortable. Each breath taken here carries the scent of damp stone and cool iron, of rain-soaked brick and old mortar, and there is a chill in the air that does not bite, but settles quietly against the skin, reminding the body of the season, of the hour, of the simple fact that the world outside is awake and moving slowly beneath a curtain of rain. Footsteps, if there are any, sound distant and rare, softened by the wet ground and swallowed quickly by the fog, leaving behind only a faint echo that fades before it can fully form, so that the street returns again to its steady rhythm. The rain tapping, the water flowing, the light shimmering and dissolving. A lullaby composed not of melody, but of texture and repetition. The rain beads along the edges of coats and umbrellas, tracing small paths downward before slipping free and joining the larger story below. Oh, and when it touches skin, it feels cool, but not unwelcome, like a gentle reminder rather than a demand, a presence that asks nothing more than to be noticed and then allowed to continue. Time seems unimportant here, stretched thin by the steady fall of water, measured not in minutes or hours, but in the sound of droplets meeting stone, in the slow drift of fog past lamplight, in the way the city breathes differently when wrapped in rain, quieter, softer, more willing to let the night settle fully into itself. And it is within this unhurried, rain-soaked calm that the library waits, unseen at first, its presence suggested only by the way the street seems to narrow slightly, by the sense that something solid and enduring stands just beyond the reach of the fog, offering shelter, not loudly, not urgently, but patiently, as it has done for so many nights before. approaching the building feels less like a decision and more like a natural continuation of the walk, as though the rain itself has gently guided each step forward, the cobblestones leading the way without instruction, until the dark outline of the library's entrance becomes clearer, its stone facade rising quietly from the street, weathered but steadfast, absorbing the rain without complaint. The steps leading up to the door are slick with moisture, each one worn smooth by countless visitors who have climbed them seeking warmth, knowledge, or simply a place to rest. And as feet meet stone, there is a subtle shift in sound, the hollow echo of rain-softened steps replacing the open murmur of the street below. The doors themselves are tall and heavy, fashioned from dark wood that has deepened in colour over the years, its surface marked by fine lines and shallow grooves that tell stories of age rather than wear. And set into the wood is an iron handle, cool to the touch, its shape familiar and reassuring, curved to fit the hand, as though it has always known it would be held this way. Grasping the handle brings a brief awareness of the cold stored within the metal, a contrast to the warmth promised beyond, and the weight of it is comforting, substantial, grounding, a reminder that this door is meant to endure, meant to stand between worlds without haste or fragility. There is a pause here, a small moment of stillness where the rain continues behind, tapping patiently against stone and wood, while the hand remains on the handle, feeling its solidity, feeling the quiet expectation that nothing needs to be rushed, that the night will wait as long as necessary. The key, when it is drawn from a pocket, carries its own quiet presence, cool and smooth, its edges softened by use, and as it meets the lock, there is a gentle click, precise and deliberate, followed by the muted turn of metal within metal, a sound that feels private, almost ceremonial, as though marking a transition that happens often, but is never hurried. When the door begins to open, it does so slowly, not swinging wide, but yielding with a controlled, patient movement, allowing a thin line of warmth to slip through first, barely noticeable, yet unmistakable, carrying with it a hint of something dry, something calm, something untouched by rain. The outside sounds shift subtly as the opening widens, the rain's voice becoming less immediate, less detailed, as if already beginning to step back, respectful of the boundary it has reached, while the interior offers no sound at first, only a sense of space and stillness, waiting beyond the threshold. Stepping inside brings a gentle resistance from the door as it closes again, the wood, meeting its frame with a deep, muffled thud that feels final but not abrupt, a sound that settles into the walls rather than echoing, sealing away the night without effort, without force, until the rain becomes only a distant presence, its rhythm softened and blurred by thick stone and timber. The lock turns once more, quietly, efficiently, and then there is silence. Not an absolute silence, but a layered one, built of distance and insulation, where the outside world continues, but no longer demands attention. Its sounds reduce to a faint suggestion, like a memory already beginning to fade. The air inside is warmer, noticeably so, and it moves differently, no longer damp or sharp but dry and still, wrapping gently around the body, as though acknowledging the arrival and offering immediate reassurance, allowing shoulders to lower, breath to deepen, the subtle tension carried in from the street to begin its slow release. There is a scent here that arrives almost at once, a blend of beeswax polish and old wood, of leather bindings and settled dust, a fragrance that feels layered and rich rather than heavy, each note distinct yet harmonious, telling of care and age, of surfaces tended to over many years, of floors polished not for shine alone, but for preservation. The foyer opens wide, its ceiling rising higher than expected, disappearing into shadow above, while the floor beneath gleams softly, reflecting the low light in gentle, broken patterns, the beeswax catching the glow and holding it close, creating a warmth that feels as though it radiates upward through the soles of the feet. Shadows gather comfortably along the edges of the space, not ominous, but restful, offering depth without mystery, and the walls stand solid and quiet, lined with stone that has absorbed countless evenings like this one, countless entrances made in silence, countless moments of transition from cold to warm, from noise to calm. Somewhere deeper within the building, a fire crackles softly, its presence announced not by sound alone, but by the way the air seems to carry a faint suggestion of smoke and embers, subtle and reassuring, promising steady heat rather than sudden flare. The light here is deliberate and restrained, coming from lamps placed with care rather than abundance, each casting a soft pool that fades gently into the next, leaving no harsh edges, no sharp contrast, only a slow gradient from illumination to shadow that invites the eyes to relax rather than search. Footsteps upon the polished floor sound muted and respectful, each one absorbed quickly, leaving no lingering echo, as though the space itself prefers quiet movement, encouraging slow progress, measured steps, unhurried presence. The transition from the rain-soaked street to this interior calm feels complete now, the chill that clung to clothing and skin easing its grip, replaced by a steady, comforting warmth that does not overwhelm but simply exists, allowing the body to remember what it feels like to rest. Breathing becomes slower without instruction, deeper without effort, and the senses, no longer pulled in multiple directions, begin to settle, focusing gently on the texture of the air, the scent of polish and paper, the distant, steady sound of firewood, shifting as it burns. The foyer stretches onward, hinting at rooms beyond, at shelves and corridors and spaces filled with quiet purpose. But there is no need to move yet, no expectation to explore or decide, only the simple invitation to stand here for a moment longer, allowing the night outside to remain outside, allowing the calm inside to deepen naturally, one breath at a time. As the library receives its guests and holds them gently within its walls, ready to offer the long, unbroken quiet that waits just ahead, where time slows even further, where thought softens, and where the world, for now, asks for nothing at all. The walk begins with a kind of quiet inevitability, as though the library itself has breathed out a slow invitation, and the body has simply agreed to follow it, one unhurried step at a time, moving away from the open warmth of the foyer and the distant comfort of the fire, and into the deeper, older heart of the building, where the air seems to grow calmer with every pace, and where the silence feels less like an absence and more like something carefully arranged. Beneath the feet, the floor changes its voice, and the polished boards of the entry give way to thick Persian rugs that have known 1,000 patient evenings, their patterns faded into softness, their fibres pressed and lifted again by generations of slow footsteps, and the sound of leather shoes upon them is not a sharp tap, but a gentle hush, a muted brushing whisper that rises and falls with each step, as though the rug receives the weight and then lets it go without complaint, without echo, absorbing it the way moss absorbs rain. The rugs lie in long runners that guide the aisles like quiet rivers, their colours deep and subdued. Burgundy and indigo, old gold and soft umber. Colours that seem to belong to lamplight and shadow rather than to day, and as the character walks, those woven patterns drift beneath like a slow tapestry, sliding past, steady and reassuring, making the movement feel smooth, measured, almost dreamlike. Behind, the fireplace glow begins to fade. Not suddenly, but gradually, like the last warmth of a sunset, withdrawing behind a hill, and the air grows cooler in the gentlest way, not cold, simply less warmed, more neutral, more like the interior of a kept secret. And the light changes too, thinning with distance, the amber brightness dissolving into dimness as the aisles rise tall and narrow, the shelves drawing closer on either side, their height making a quiet canyon of wood and leather-bound spines. The library's acoustics become more hushed the farther one goes, and it is not only the rugs that soften sound, but the books themselves. Thousands upon thousands of volumes standing shoulder to shoulder, each one a small wall of paper and binding and cloth. Each one an absorber of noise, so that any sound made here seems to settle almost immediately into the shelves, as though the room is listening with such patience that it does not need to repeat anything back. A breath sounds quieter, as if the air has learned to hold it gently, and even the faintest movement, fabric shifting against a sleeve, a shoe turning slightly on the rug, feels softened, wrapped in the library's calm. And there is a strange comfort in realizing that the space does not allow sharpness, that it does not encourage anything hurried or loud, but instead draws everything down into a slow, thick quiet, like falling into a deep feather bed of silence. The aisles stretch onward, their ends blurred by low light, and overhead the ceiling is less visible now, hidden by distance and shadow, while the shelves rise like dark wooden cliffs, their edges carved with subtle detail that the eyes only half register, because the atmosphere encourages not looking too closely, not focusing too sharply, but letting everything remain gentle and indistinct. Somewhere far behind, the fire continues to crackle. Yet here it arrives only as a faint suggestion, the memory of warmth rather than its full presence. And the rain outside is even further away, reduced to a distant hush beyond stone and glass and wood, like a soft breath behind a door, steady enough to be comforting, quiet enough to be ignored. The character walks slowly, guided not by intention, but by the simple rhythm of motion. And with each step, the body seems to grow heavier in a pleasant way, as though the rugs and the air and the silence are gradually taking the day's weight and lowering it gently toward rest, until the very act of walking feels like part of falling asleep. And then, without any announcement, the shelves begin to invite touch. Not because anything needs to be chosen, but because the textures themselves seem to call for slow attention, and the hand lifts naturally, drifting toward the spines as though drawn by curiosity, so mild it is closer to comfort than interest. A fingertip meets the first row of books, and immediately there is a sense of coolness in the bindings, a stored temperature held within leather and cloth, the kind of cool that is not unpleasant but quietly grounding, and the hand begins to move along the line in a slow glide, allowing each spine to pass beneath the touch like beads on a rosary. Each one distinct, each one carrying its own small history in texture and wear. Some bindings are leather, smooth in places where hands have touched them before, and rougher along the edges where the grain has lifted with age, and the leather feels firm, slightly stiff, as though it has dried gently over time, holding its shape with dignified persistence, while other books are wrapped in linen that has grown coarse, its threads raised and uneven, offering a faint rasp against the skin that is softened by the slow pace of the finger. Here and there, raised gold lettering catches the faint light, not shining brightly, but glowing softly, the gold pressed into the surface in small, careful ridges. And when the finger passes over it, it can feel the shapes without reading them, a delicate topography of titles and names, letters that are more texture than meaning in this moment. And the sensation is oddly soothing, like tracing a familiar pattern in the dark. Some spines are cracked with age, the leather opening into fine lines like riverbeds seen from above, each crack shallow and harmless, simply evidence of time, while others are reinforced with bands or ridges, raised sections that sit under the finger like gentle steps, giving the touch a slow rhythm as it moves from one book to the next. Rise and fall, like walking barefoot across warm stones. There is dust, too, but not the harsh, gritty dust of neglect, rather a soft, velvety layer, the kind that forms in a well-kept old place, where the air is calm and movement is infrequent, and when the finger brushes it, it gathers lightly on the skin, a faint powder that feels almost like suede, and it carries the quiet scent of paper and wood, released gently into the air, as though the books are exhaling memories. And the smell here is its own slow landscape, deepening with each breath the longer one stands between these shelves, a fragrance often simply called old book, but in truth composed of many softer notes layered together. Some sweet, some dry, some faintly spicy, all of them subtle enough to feel like part of the air, rather than something separate from it. There is a vanilla-like warmth that rises first, a gentle sweetness that does not feel sugary, but mellow, like the scent of old parchment warmed by time, and beneath it, a faint almond note, delicate and nutty, as though the paper itself carries the memory of trees and seeds, and the slow chemical changes that come with age, with the turning of years into decades into centuries. The dried paper scent is unmistakable, but it is not sharp. It is soft and papery, like the inside of a long-closed drawer lined with letters, like the warm dryness of a sunlit attic, even though no sun is present, and each inhale seems to bring it closer, more familiar, until the mind begins to associate it with safety, with quiet, with the promise that nothing here will ever demand haste. There are other notes too, quieter, almost imagined. The faint trace of beeswax lingering from polished wood, the dry spice of old glue, the subtle earthiness of leather that has aged without cracking too deeply, and now and then, a whisper of smoke from the distant fire, threading through it all like a thin ribbon, reminding the senses that warmth still exists beyond the aisles. The hand continues its slow journey, finger passing over linen that feels slightly frayed at the edges, over leather stamped with delicate patterns, over cloth spines that have softened like worn fabric, and occasionally the finger pauses on a particularly raised letter or an embossed border, lingering there as though the texture itself is worth resting upon. As the finger moves, the dust shifts in tiny, lazy motes that drift into the low light, floating slowly, unhurried, like particles suspended in sleep itself, and the air remains calm enough that they do not scatter quickly, but hang for a moment, then settle again, returning the shelves to their quiet stillness. It becomes easy here to forget the idea of choosing anything at all, because the act of touching is already enough, already satisfying, a slow meditation of fingertips and breath, leather and linen, dust and gold, and the steady, comforting aroma of paper that has lived a long life, holding words that do not need to be read tonight. And yet, as the wandering continues, the character's gaze drifts upward, following the height of the shelves, noticing the upper rows where books sit untouched, their spines darker, their titles less visible. And it is there, along the edge of one aisle, that a rolling wooden ladder waits patiently, as though it has always been there, ready, but never insistent. The ladder is made of polished wood that has deepened in colour with use, its rungs worn smooth where hands have gripped them, and its sides curve gently, fitted to a brass rail that runs along the base of the shelves. And as the character approaches, there is a soft, familiar creak in the wood. Not a complaint, but the quiet sound of something old shifting into attention. A hand rests on the ladder's side, feeling the faint coolness of varnished wood, the subtle grooves where grain shows through, and with a gentle push, the ladder begins to roll, its small wheels moving along the brass track with a low, muted sound, more a soft rumble than a clatter, metal guiding wood guiding motion, each wheel turning slowly, evenly, as if the ladder understands that speed would be out of place here. The brass rail itself shines faintly, catching the dim light in a thin line, and as the ladder glides, it produces a quiet, rhythmic whisper, wheels passing over tiny seams, a subtle pattern of sound that feels as calming as the rain, repetitive and restrained, never sharp enough to startle. When the ladder comes to rest, it does so gently, settling into stillness with a final soft roll that fades into silence almost immediately, and then the character begins to climb, one rung at a time, slowly, carefully, feeling the wood beneath the shoes, the slight give of old structure, the steady support that makes each step feel safe and deliberate. The climb is unhurried, and with each rung, the air seems slightly cooler, simply from being farther from the rugs and closer to the higher shelves. And the scent of old book deepens here, stronger in the upper rows where dust lies thicker, where bindings have rested longer without touch, and breathing it in feels like breathing in time itself, dry and sweet and faintly almond, like paper that has been sleeping for years. At the top, the character pauses, not because anything is difficult, but because pausing feels natural, and the hand reaches out again, fingers hovering over a row of oversized volumes that sit like quiet monuments, their spines broad, their corners reinforced, their leather dark and heavy-looking even in the low light. One book in particular seems to offer itself, not brightly, not insistently, simply by the way its spine sits slightly forward, as if it has been waiting to be held. And the hand settles on it, feeling at once the firmness of thick leather, the coolness stored in its surface, and the faint dust that coats it like powder on velvet. Pulling it free takes slow effort, not strain, but an awareness of weight, of substance. And as the book slides out, there is a soft sound of leather rubbing against wood, a quiet sigh of movement, and then the book is in the character's hands. Heavier than expected, its mass comforting, like holding something solid and certain in a world that often feels too fast. The edges of the pages are slightly uneven, thick with age, and they hold a faint smell of dried paper that rises more clearly now that the volume is close. And as the character begins to open it, slowly, carefully, there is a gentle crackle from the ancient spine, not loud, not alarming, but the soft, dry sound of old binding flexing for the first time in a long while, like a quiet stretch after a long rest. And the pages begin to separate with a faint whisper, releasing a deeper breath of vanilla and almond and thyme. And for a moment everything feels perfectly still. The ladder steady beneath the feet, the aisles silent around, and the book opening like a door into a softer kind of quiet, where even the act of reading is optional, and simply holding the open weight of it is enough to make the mind slow further and further until the thoughts begin to loosen and drift, like dust motes sinking gently through the dim air. Settling towards sleep, the chair waits in a quiet pool of firelight, positioned just close enough to the hearth to feel the warmth without needing to lean toward it. And as the character approaches, the tall back and gently curved wings rise like a private enclosure. An Edwardian wing chair shaped for long evenings and unhurried rest. Its dark leather surface softened by age and use, carrying a faint sheen that reflects the glow in slow, uneven patterns. Lowering into the chair happens without rush, the body guided more by gravity than intention. And there is a soft, familiar creak as the leather responds, a low, yielding sound that feels less like movement and more like welcome, as though the chair itself recognizes the weight being offered and adjusts willingly to receive it. The cushions give slowly, not springing or resisting, but easing downward under the body's shape, the stuffing shifting and settling with a muted sigh, allowing hips and thighs and back to sink into a position that feels immediately correct, immediately supportive. And as the weight transfers fully from legs to chair, there is a subtle release that passes through the body, a quiet exhale that seems to come from muscles that have been holding on for longer than realized. The wings of the chair rise on either side of the shoulders, creating a gentle sense of enclosure, blocking drafts and distractions alike. And the high back supports the spine all the way up to the neck, encouraging the head to rest without effort. The leather cool at first, then gradually warming where it meets skin and fabric. As the body settles deeper, the chair responds in kind, conforming more precisely now, the cushion beneath the thighs molding gently, the back cradling the shoulders, the armrests offering themselves at just the right height so that the arms can drape rather than hold. And there is a growing sense of heaviness, not fatigue, but a pleasant density, as though the body has finally been allowed to become fully present in its own weight. The feet extend forward, heels resting comfortably, and the shins catch the edge of the fire's warmth. a gentle heat that spreads slowly, seeping through fabric, encouraging circulation, loosening muscles without any sharp contrast, and the legs respond by relaxing further, knees easing, ankles growing loose. The chair holds everything, without judgment, without expectation, and the simple act of sitting becomes an arrival of its own, a final transition from movement to stillness, from wandering to rest. And the quiet satisfaction of this shift settles in, deep and reassuring, like a heavy blanket being drawn up slowly, 1 inch at a time. The fire becomes the natural focus now, its presence steady and alive, contained within the wide stone hearth, where logs are arranged with care. Some already reduced to glowing embers, others still whole enough to carry small tongues of flame that rise and fall in unhurried patterns. The flames themselves are not uniform, but layered, with deeper orange at their core, fading into softer yellows and occasional hints of blue, where the heat burns hottest, and they move with a lazy, rolling motion, curling around the wood, retreating briefly, then returning, never in a hurry, never abrupt, as though following a rhythm older than thought. Every so often, there is a gentle snap as a pocket of sap warms and releases, the sound crisp but not loud, followed by a faint hiss when a log shifts slightly and settles again, sending a few sparks upward, where they flare briefly, then fade, leaving behind a deeper glow in the embers below. The embers themselves pulse slowly, breathing light in and out, their red and amber tones deepening and softening in a pattern that feels almost synchronized with breath, brightening gently on the inhale, dimming on the exhale, and watching them becomes less an act of attention and more an effortless drifting of the eyes. Warmth radiates outward in waves, invisible but unmistakable, reaching first the shins, then the knees, then gradually rising higher, touching the hands where they rest on the armrest, warming the fingers, loosening them so they curl slightly, no longer holding anything at all. Nearby, on a small side table, a teacup rests, its porcelain pale in the dim light, and from its surface, thin streams of steam rise slowly, twisting and unraveling as they meet the cooler air, catching the firelight in brief, shimmering trails before disappearing, only to be replaced by more and more. An endless, gentle cycle. The tea carries its own quiet scent, mild and comforting, perhaps black tea with a hint of bergamot, or something herbal and soft. And as the steam drifts upward, it blends with the warm, woody smell of the fire and the ever-present aroma of old books, creating a layered fragrance that feels grounding and familiar. There is no need to lift the cup yet, no need to drink, because the simple presence of it is enough. The visual of steam rising, providing its own sense of warmth and calm, a reminder that everything here exists at a pace that does not demand participation. Outside, the rain continues, but it feels far away now, filtered through thick stone walls and heavy curtains, reduced to a distant, steady whisper, a soft, rhythmic shushing that underlines the fire's crackle rather than competing with it. And together, they form a gentle soundscape that feels complete, requiring no addition. Occasionally, a stronger gust of rain brushes against the windows, emits a slightly louder patter that fades quickly, or leaving behind the same steady hush. And even that brief change feels soothing, like a small reminder of the world beyond that no longer requires attention. The firelight flickers across the room, casting slow-moving shadows that stretch and contract along the walls, across the floor, and up the spines of nearby books. And these shadows move without urgency, their pace matching the mood of the evening, encouraging the eyes to follow them lazily, without focus. When the book is finally opened on the lap, it is done with care, not out of necessity but respect. The heavy covers parting slowly, the spine flexing with a soft, familiar sound, and the pages settle open where they wish to, revealing paper that has yellowed gently with age, its surface matte and slightly textured. The ink sits dark against the page, not stark black, but softened by time. The letters slightly uneven, as though pressed by hand, and the margins are wide, offering space on awe around the words. And while the eyes may trace the lines, there is no urgency to read, no need to follow the meaning, only the visual rhythm of text and paper, line after line, resting calmly beneath the firelight. The weight of the book on the lap adds to the sense of groundedness, a reassuring pressure that anchors the body in place. And the hands, now resting loosely on the armrests, feel heavy and warm, fingers slack, palms open, no longer gripping, no longer holding the day. The shoulders begin to drop, subtly at first, then more noticeably, as muscles release their quiet effort, sliding down and back into the chair's support. And the neck follows, lengthening slightly, the head settling more fully against the high back, the jaw loosening, the tongue resting easily in the mouth. Breathing changes without instruction, the inhale growing slower, deeper, filling the chest and belly evenly, and the exhale lengthens, flowing out with a soft sigh that barely registers as sound. And each breath seems to draw the body further into stillness, further into the chair's embrace. The legs feel heavier now, thighs sinking into the cushion, calves resting comfortably, feet relaxed, toes no longer alert, and the warmth from the fire continues to rise, easing joints, smoothing tension, encouraging the lower body to rest completely. The eyes drift away from the page, settling instead on the embers, watching their slow glow, their quiet pulse. And as the gaze softens, focus becomes less important. Details blur gently, and the mind follows, releasing the need to track or analyze, content simply to observe. The rain, the fire, the quiet breath all continue together, unbroken, and the library itself seems to lean inward, holding the space steady, protecting this moment of rest, allowing the character to sink deeper into the chair, deeper into warmth, deeper into the slow rhythm of the evening, where thoughts grow softer, movements slower, and awareness begins to narrow gently, like a candle flame settling into a steady, low burn as the body relaxes further and further, and the world becomes nothing more than warmth and breath and the soft, glowing hush of a fire that continues to burn quietly, patiently, through the night. The fire has changed, so slowly that it is difficult to say exactly when it happened, as though the flames simply grew tired of dancing and decided, without announcement, to lie down and rest, leaving behind only their warmth and their colour. And the hearth now holds a deeper kind of light, a low, pulsing orange glow, where embers settle into themselves, breathing softly beneath a thin lace of grey ash. There are no tall tongues of flame anymore, no bright flickers leaping upward, only the quiet, steady presence of heat contained in glowing coal-red shapes, rounded and uneven, like small sleeping stones. And every so often, the embers brighten slightly, as if remembering the movement they once had, then dim again, returning to a heavy, velvety stillness that fills the room more completely than firelight ever could. The room grows darker, not abruptly, but with the gentle patience of night deepening, and the edges of things soften as the brighter light withdraws, the corners of the shelves melting into shadow, the high ceiling disappearing into a comfortable obscurity where no detail is required, and the long rows of books become less distinct, their spines blending into bands of deep brown and black, their gold lettering no longer catching the eye, only resting quietly in the dark. Shadows stretch long and thin across the floor, drawn out by the low ember glow, and they slide along the rugs in quiet, slow shapes, reaching toward the shelves, pooling beneath tables, curling around chair legs, and every object seems to settle deeper into its place, as though gravity itself has increased just slightly, encouraging everything to become still, to become heavy, to become calm. The wing chair remains a dark silhouette now, softer at the edges, its leather no longer reflecting bright flame, but holding only a faint, warm outline where the embers breathe, and the banker's lamp nearby glows low and steady, a small green shade casting a modest circle of light that feels almost drowsy, as if even the lamp is growing sleepy. Dust motes drift through that thin glow in slow suspension, barely moving, barely visible, and the air feels thicker, warmer, quieter, as if the room has wrapped itself in an extra layer of hush. And in this dimness, everything appears gently blurred, not because the eyes fail, but because the night is kind and it asks for less and less attention. Beyond the thick windows and heavy curtains, the rain continues, and it is the rain that now takes over. Not as a storm, not as anything wild or sharp, but as a steady, hypnotic presence, a soft and endless sound that fills the distance without ever intruding, like a lullaby sung from far away. The rain falls, and the world rests. It falls with the same patient rhythm it has held all night, a quiet, continuous hum made of countless tiny taps, softened by stone and wood on velvet curtains. And what reaches the room is not the detail of each drop, but the blended whole, the gentle shushing that seems to smooth the air itself, rounding every sound until there is nothing left that could startle. The rain falls, and the world rests. Outside, water gathers on streets and roofs, flows along gutters and down drainpipes, and all of it moves without hurry, guided by gravity and time, while inside the library, the walls feel thick and protective, like a cocoon built of stone and timber and old knowledge, holding warmth inside and holding the night at a respectful distance. The rain falls, and the world rests. But each breath is slow, and each exhale seems to sink into the sound of rain, becoming part of it, as though breathing and rainfall have joined into one gentle rhythm. In and out, full and full, the rain steady, the body steady, the room steady, everything moving in the smallest, calmest ways. The rain falls, and the world rests. It is a sound with no beginning and no end, just continuity, like a soft blanket drawn over the mind. And the longer it is heard, the less it feels like something outside, and the more it becomes part of the room's own hush. part of the library's own breathing, as if the building inhales the night and exhales rain. The rain falls, and the world rests. There is comfort in knowing the rain will not change its mind, will not suddenly demand attention, will not grow loud or urgent, but will simply continue, drop after drop, minute after minute, washing the city gently, soothing the streets, cooling the air, and keeping everything clean and quiet, while the library holds steady, dry and warm, like a safe island in a dark sea. The rain falls, and the world rests. Sometimes the sound grows slightly fuller, as if the wind shifts, and then it softens again, returning to the same low hum, the same soft shush, and this small variation only deepens the hypnosis, like a slow rocking, like the gentle rise and fall of a cradle. The rain falls, and the world rests. The thick curtains hang unmoving, their fabric heavy and dark, and behind them the window panes are cool with moisture. But that coolness stays outside, kept at bay by the solid walls. And inside there is only warmth, only stillness, only the steady companionship of sound, repeating, 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 until thought becomes unnecessary. The rain falls, and the world rests. Even the library's vast collection seems to listen. Thousands of books standing quietly, absorbing sound as they always do. Their paper and bindings taking in the world and holding it softly, so that the room remains deep and muffled. A place where nothing echoes too long, where nothing insists on being heard twice. The rain falls, and the world rests. And as the rain continues its gentle work outside, the interior grows even quieter, as though the building has settled fully into the late hour, and the air itself feels like velvet, thick and soft and calm, pressing lightly against the skin, inviting the body to surrender more completely to rest. The rain falls, and the world rests. Time moves toward its deepest point, the hour when the city sleeps most fully, when streets are empty and windows are dark, when clocks tick softly for no one. And within the library, protected and enclosed, there is the sense of being held in a place outside ordinary time, a place where the night can pass without any need to follow it. The rain falls, and the world rests. At last, the book on the character's lap shifts almost imperceptibly, its pages relaxing as the hands no longer support them. And with the smallest, gentlest motion, the covers ease together, closing with a soft, muted thump that is barely a sound at all, more like the idea of a sound bar, a final settling, a quiet conclusion. The spine gives one tiny, familiar crackle, then becomes still. The hands remain where they are, loose, warm, heavy. The chin lowers slowly, naturally, as if drawn down by the comfort of gravity, resting toward the chest in a position that feels perfectly safe, perfectly unguarded. And the shoulders sink deeper into the chair, dropping another fraction of an inch, letting go of the last thin threads of effort. Nearby, the banker's lamp waits in its small circle of light. A hand moves slowly, as if through warm water. Fingers find the switch. There is a soft click, and the lamp goes dark. The room does not become empty when the light fades. It becomes softer, deeper, still, The ember glow remains in the hearth, a faint orange pulse beneath ash. The only light now, and it is so low that shadows stretch into long, thin ribbons across the shelves, across the rugs, across the quiet furniture, and the outlines of the books dissolve further, becoming gentle shapes, becoming a dark comfort rather than a collection of details. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The library is at peace. The rain continues outside. Steady, hypnotic, kind. The air is warm. The chair holds the body. The embers breathe slowly. The walls stand thick and protective. And nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to be done. Just the hush. Just the deep. Just the drift. Breath in. Breath out. The rain falls. The world rests. The rain falls. The world rests. The rain falls. The world rests. And everything is still. So still. So soft. So heavy. So warm. And you can simply do. And drift. And drift. Until even the thought of the library fades. Until the sound becomes a gentle blur. Until the night becomes only peace. Only hush. Only rest. And then